All right. What is up, everybody? Jared here. Thanks for joining me on this live stream. This is a video that I've been wanting to make for some time. Looking back at the channel, at the 600 plus videos that I was there for, I mean, it's a trip down memory lane. And I am so incredibly proud of the output, not only of myself, but of the entire Wisecrack team over the last like 7 or 8 years. And I consider this my life's work. And let me tell you, picking the top ones was so hard. It was like picking children, it was like pulling teeth. Originally, I was going to do a top 10, but then I couldn't only pick 10, so I decided to do top 15. But then I couldn't pick top 15, so we settled on top 20. So we're going to be doing the top 20 my favorite Wisecrack videos. So let's get started. So the first one is actually this one right here, Harry Potter and the Plague of Twitter. So the reason why, and this one was written by Alec Opperman, who was the head of content after I left Wisecrack. One of the smartest guys I know, love that man. The reason why I love this video so much is because it talks about I guess not the negative things about overanalysis, but I think I mean, the whole premise of it is that we use the Heideggerian concept of inframing to talk about why when J.K. Rowling tweets about, oh, Dumbledore's gay, oh, actually such and such, Hermione, the race wasn't specified, and she constantly revises her story, that it's actually very destructive to the kind of creative potency of the work and its overall impact. And it also revealed this episode, we were able to kind of give a philosophical framework for why some of my favorite shows and books are not something that I like for any intellectual reasons. It's actually something that I like just because it gives me joy or because it allows for interesting juxtapositions of images and ideas in my head that can't be verbalized. And so this video gets the number 20 spot for my favorite Wisecrack videos because, in a sense, it cautions our viewers not to aggressively overthink everything and to sometimes just enjoy. All right, so let's get on to number 19. So my number 19 is not that one, this one, The Philosophy of Get Out. I love this movie, and I think you guys will find that sometimes the best Wisecrack videos are very dependent on how great the actual source material is. If the source material is very insightful and has a lot of interesting things to talk about, usually the Wisecrack video will be better. And Get Out was an incredible first film, probably one of the best first films in the last like 50 years from Jordan Peele. And this one was written by Dr. Michael Burns, who is currently the main host on the channel. And I think he just did such an awesome job breaking down. I think we talked a little bit about W.E.B. Du Bois. We talked about that French Algerian philosopher. Of course, his name is escaping me right now because it's actually later here in Finland than it is in America. But also, little side note, Lakeith Stanfield actually saw this video. This is before he was a huge celebrity like he is now. And he commented in our channel that because he has a bit role in the movie, and he commented on our channel how much he likes the channel and how much he liked the video. And I was already a fan of his back then. And so that was kind of a really cool moment for the whole company. All right, next one, number 18. You already know what it is. Of course, I have to search for a couple Rick and Morty, but it's The Philosophy of Rick and Morty. Oh boy. I guess this is kind of funny that it's taking me so long. There we go. The Philosophy of Rick and Morty. This is our most viewed video. And I think that this video it's interesting. I didn't expect this video to get as big as it did. I don't think anyone really expected it because I don't think Rick and Morty was really that popular of a show at that point. It was around this time that it started to enter the mainstream. And I remember waking up the morning after we uploaded this video and seeing that, oh my God, like that got like twice as many views as I would have expected it to. And then the views just kept going and going and going. And looking back, I think one of the reasons why this video resonated so much. Oh, by the way, this video was also written by Alec. Him and I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, we shared a Google Notes document where we would write down time codes of different episodes and write down like little bullet point analyses. And then Alec, like he always does, very masterfully put all of that into a script. And I think one of the things at Wisecrack that I think we really kind of rode the wave on was this kind of, at least within America or the West, this kind of general awakening towards existential thinking. I think that during this time, there were a variety of pieces of media that were getting very popular that dealt with some kind of disillusionment, whether it's Deadpool, which is disillusioning you from the tropes of Marvel movies, or whether it's honest trailers. The whole thing is disillusioning you from marketing and advertising methods. Or in this case, Rick and Morty, which is kind of disillusioning you from any kind of religious narratives or any forms of meaning that that society tries to produce. And so I think one of the reasons this video was so successful is because and another reason why the show is so successful is because it really showed a kind of a comically dismal perspective about the cold indifference of the universe in a very funny way. And so it was kind of a perfect storm for us at Wisecrack. And a lot of people have told me that this is their favorite video, and that I think that Rick and Morty was just a really great teaching tool to let people understand the basic tenets of existentialism. And, that is kind of the bullseye for work at Wisecrack, because anytime that there is an opportunity for a cultural relic to open people's eyes to new ideas, we loved to kind of be that connecting tissue. All right, so that was number 18. Moving on to number 17. I see in the chat Alfredo Garcia. I believe I met that gentleman at the gym in Los Angeles. Shout out, Alfredo. I also see Peristu in the chat. Peristu joined us during our screening of Network with Mateus Rosarin, and that went over really well. Had a really great time. I'm going to be uploading some of the clips from that discussion. Anyway, coming in at number 17, we have a vlog on the Fire Festival. A lot of times at Wisecrack, it was always a challenge when there was something popular and we really wanted to cover it because we wanted to take advantage of the momentum. And we also were constantly challenging ourselves with the notion, all right, well, this is popular. Why is it popular? Why is this resonating so much with someone? And sometimes, or really oftentimes, it would be a very simple answer. And so it really wasn't enough for a video. Because while I was there, we would always kind of give ourselves that there had to be a so what. It couldn't just be that, oh, well, this is popular because, a one word answer, or it couldn't be something that you could just explain in a sentence. It had to be something that developed gradually and ultimately had some greater statement to say about our lives, about society, about philosophy, about something. And it was really a treat when we were able to link the Fire Festival to authors like Don DeLillo, as well as, writers like Baudrillard. And I think Baudrillard, at least during my time there, was definitely the most talked about author or philosopher on the channel, and for no small reason. I mean, I think that you could very easily say that in the years between 2013 and 2019, Baudrillard's theses about hyperreality and about how advertising has a very, very strong effect on our consumer society is undeniable. So I really liked how this Fire Festival video turned out because we got to philosophize about Instagram. And I think Instagram is something that's just so relevant to people. And the fact that we got an opportunity to make people think critically about something that they use every day, and not only something they use every day, but something that frames so much of people's day-to-day thought. So I really think that we did some good work here with this Fire Festival video. Oh, and that one was written by myself, and then Alec and I did a round of revisions together. And Alec is a bit better with his Baudrillard than I was, so he added that part. I was more of the DeLillo person, but it was definitely a collaborative effort. All right, moving on to number 16. This is actually, it's right here, right here. Django Unchained, How to Destroy an Ideology. We were brainstorming for probably like a year. How do we make a Wisecrack edition about Django Unchained? And Tarantino's work in general is very difficult to analyze because, like, think of the title Pulp Fiction. The title itself suggests that there is no greater meaning. It's pulp. It's just lewd and graphic and explicit for the sake of those things. And a lot of Tarantino's work is a little bit difficult because it's always driven by this kind of excess and style and just really master of pacing and acting and dialogue. And so finding a philosophical angle to a Tarantino work is really challenging. And after about a year, we decided to do a podcast on it. And it was me, Austin, this guy named Bradless, and Greg Edwards, aka Sparky Sweets, who I know is hosting on the channel these days. And we all discussed the movie for about an hour. And from that conversation, we finally landed on an angle. And I think the video turned out so well. And I think it really does justice to how the movie functions. And I also just love this movie. I think that Samuel L. Jackson is so funny. I think his performance is severely underrated. I mean, this is one of my favorite DiCaprio performances. He's so hateable, so disgusting, and so funny. And of course, Christoph Waltz and Jamie Foxx, who might be one of the most talented men alive. It's just a masterpiece. And I was so happy that we got to do the film justice and really kind of arm people with a language to say why they appreciate the movie so much. So that is number 16. All right, moving on to number 15. This is, let's see, it is The Philosophy of the Joker. Let's see if I can find it. Joker's another big cultural thing. Here we go. Philosophy of the Joker. This one was written by a gentleman named Tom Head. He is I believe he writes textbooks, like history textbooks, last time I talked to him. Really great gentleman to work with. This was written by him, and then there were revisions done by a gentleman named Matt Reichley, who I believe currently lives in San Antonio. He was a debate coach. Matt Reichley actually took over 8-bit philosophy at some point, and he also was the person to write the first Wisecrack edition. So similar to the philosophy of Rick and Morty, I also think that this episode resonated a lot because it similarly gave people language to understand why the Joker resonates so much with people. That why was Heath Ledger's Joker so captivating, other than the fact that Heath Ledger's performance was unforgettable. And I think that just the notion that before, I guess really Nolan's take on the Joker is very much an extension of Alan Moore's take on him. But the notion that we got to kind of like explain to people and share ideas about how the Joker doesn't just joke because that's his gimmick, but the Joker jokes because everything is trivial, I think was, again, just a really powerful thing to be able to share with people. And again, I think that, you could say for better or worse, I think that we were all with, I mean, you can politicize this. Like if I were to say that, like, after the kind of afterglow of the Obama years, kind of started to wane off, people were just constantly disillusioned with things. And I think that this was a perfect time for religious disillusionment. And so in the same way that the philosophy of Rick and Morty was a big success for us, this one similarly really connected with people. And of course, the Joker is just the coolest character, and any excuse to talk about Batman is is a pleasure. So really had an amazing time with that one. All right, so on to number 14. All right, so number 14 is the philosophy of Attack on Titan. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. Philosophy of Attack on Titan. So this one was great. This one was written by Matt Reichely, the gentleman that I mentioned previously. And this was also, toward the end of my time at Wisecrack, it became very difficult for me to watch everything, obviously. I mean, that would mean I would have zero free time if I had to watch everything, if I had to read everything. I mean, I would have to be 6 people. But in the case of Attack on Titan, I actually did watch everything. Yeah, hopefully we get the new season of South Park. And Paris Stu has a comment. Weekly reaction videos, of course. The only thing is, I think I'm gonna have to pay for Paramount Plus. So whatever. Anyway, but yeah, that's definitely gonna happen. So philosophy of Attack on Titan. One of the reasons I like this video so much is because, well, I think that our thesis just worked really well. And basically our thesis was that the reason why that it's, or really kind of our creative entrance into talking about the show, was that the reason why it's set in Germany is because it follows the philosophy of a controversial Third Reich philosopher named Carl Schmitt. And not only, I think, were we able to kind of overlay his philosophy very accurately onto, I believe the show was only in its 2nd season at the time, but we were actually able to predict some of the revelations of the show that would happen in the next season or the next 2 seasons. And no one on the team had read the mangas. We were just going off the anime. And I remember also that this video was directed by a wonderful woman named Camille Lecoq. She's French Canadian. I'm probably messing up her last name, but I think it was the first and last Wisecrack edition she ever directed, because it was so much work to go through all of the episodes of Attack on Titan to come up with kind of the visual plan for it. So hats off to you, Camille, for toughing it through. All right, so next one is number 13, and this is the philosophy of Logan. So around this time in Wisecrack's history, there had become this one was written also by Alec. And I believe there was some research done by Austin Smith. But I think that Alec was the only one that wrote it. But anyway, around this time, there had started to become a real competitive landscape for video essays, in the sense that, like, we were all racing. Dark Souls should be like, Dark Souls is definitely not on the list, my friend. But there had started to become like a race for angles, in the sense that, when Logan came out on DVD, there would be like 6 video essay channels that all basically had the same angle, because at the end of the day, with a film like Logan, it's a pretty clear, there's the comparison with Logan and Shane and the post-Western and the Man of Violence and all that stuff. But what I really appreciate about this video is that we had one angle that is undeniably there that nobody else caught on to. And I have to give all credit to Alec on this one. And it was the idea of enclosure, and how in the Westerns we saw the idea of land being privatized and tamed for purposes of profitability. And we similarly saw that with the idea of mutant genetics. And I undeniably think that there's sufficient evidence to suggest that was there. And it was just a real moment of pride for me that our team was able to come up with a unique and robust angle that no one else was able to come up with. I don't know if it really helped the numbers, but it meant something to me either way. All right, so that was number 13. Number 12 is the Thug Notes on Lolita. So there's a couple reasons for this. I think Greg and I just had a lot of fun on the set of this one. And we were doing a lot of really fun improv. For example, this one starts out with Greg saying, which is even more relevant today. He says, "I hope you like R. Kelly because this week we're doing Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov." And if I remember correctly, I think Greg just said that during filming. It was definitely not in the script, but sometimes Greg likes to improv. And a lot of times, some of the funniest moments in Thug Notes was when Greg was just going off script. And I I remember my co-writer Joe and I were very hesitant about doing this book, not only because of the delicate subject matter, but also because it's not really a text that lends itself to analysis in the way that a Dostoevsky or a Shakespeare text would. But I think the episode came out really nicely. And I think that we were able to justify its analysis. And there were just little moments like Greg saying, like, "Oh, this is nasty, guys," just like in the way that he is able to do so well, that really just like gave this episode a lot of really laugh out loud moments. So that's number 12, Thug Notes on Lolita. Next one is the first episode of 8-Bit Philosophy, What is Real? So so this was the pilot concept of 8-Bit Philosophy. This was written by me, and this was animated by a wonderful 8-bit animator named MB McLean. I think he's an artist. He has many talents, but one of the things he can do is animate in 8-bit. And one of the really great things about this one was we used all Zelda assets, but also it just was really cool that we were able to use Zelda imagery to tell the story of the cave, Plato's allegory of the cave, so well, because as everybody knows, in Zelda 1, there's the I don't know, what does the old man say, like, be careful. Ugh, I'm forgetting the meme. Someone in the comments help me out here. Uh, but anyway, so we were able to use the cave imagery. There were, I think we used the chains from bombs, which are technically from Mario, and we were able to mix images of Zelda 2 and Zelda 1. And also, one of the greatest things about 8-bit philosophy that even some of the kind of biggest diehard fans maybe don't know is that every episode of 8-bit philosophy had original music. Um, and it was written, all the episodes had original music written by a gentleman named David Crystal. Okay, there we go. Reed and Julio got me. It's dangerous to go alone. Take this. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Anyway, this guy, David Crystal, is so brilliant. And, this actually brings me to something that was a big challenge for us at Wisecrack, is that every time we found somebody who was like really talented, we were able to give them a platform to prove how talented they were, and then somebody with way more money took them away from us. So in one of my earlier things, I talked about the writer and co-creator of Earthling Cinema, this guy named Ben Steiner, stolen from us by Mindy Kaling. Obviously can't compete with that. In this case, the guy who wrote all of the original music for 8-bit philosophy was stolen by a guy named Benjamin Wallfish, who is a very, very famous, well, I don't know how famous he is, but he definitely gets a lot of work. A composer. He did the original compositions for Paddington Bear 1 and 2 for the recent Mortal Kombat movie. I mean, this guy is working, and David is actually he basically, like, Wallfish writes the music, and then David basically like directs the symphony and actually figures out which instruments play what part. He's a brilliant, brilliant guy. Anyway, all right, so that's number 11. Number 10 is the philosopher, or the deeper dumb on Nicolas Cage's acting. So really the strength, this is written by Amanda Shirker, who is currently working at Wisecrack. And as always, she delivered an incredible script. But really, I think the strength of this video is based on the book that it's based on, which is called Nicolas Cage National Treasure, which I highly recommend everybody pick up. And it was basically this woman author, I can't remember her name. It was her thesis that really generated the entire angle for this video. And it was just such a joy. First of all, this video really does change my entire perspective on what acting is and what makes a good actor. And not only that, it's just was such a joy to create a video that is full of clips of Nicolas Cage in his most ridiculous moments. And as much as all of us love to see a good Nicolas Cage freak out, it was just something extra special to have a lens of appreciation for those freakouts that really spoke to something pretty profound about acting that Nicolas Cage taps into. So I love this video. So glad that we were able to make it. All right, so that is number 10. Number 9 is the philosophy of Ghost in the Shell. This might be kind of a surprise to you guys. I am not a huge Ghost in the Shell fan, but I think this video came out really well. This was written, this is written by a guy named Kevin Windsor, who was like our in-house lawyer for a very brief time. He's a lawyer by trade, and then he actually show ran Earthling Cinema for a little bit towards the end of the show's life. Kevin Windsor is an incredibly smart guy. Incredibly good writer, but this is the only Wisecrack edition he ever wrote because it was too much work. But he did such a good job. And I think that, again, because Ghost in the Shell is such a profound piece, it made for a great Wisecrack video because we were able to talk about the dialectic and we were able to explain it. And yeah, we were able to explain the dialectic, the Hegelian dialectic, and the master-slave dialectic in the same video with a level of clarity for people who are Ghost in the Shell fans that I think is really hard to achieve otherwise. So as a piece of educational material about philosophy that also really gives people like a lens to appreciate a awesome piece of science fiction, I've always have thought that this video was a home run. It really just doesn't get better than this. And I think, again, Kevin Windsor just knocked it out of the park. All right. So similarly, for number 8, we have the philosophy of Nier Automata, although I said automata many times in the video. And since we're actually looking at this one right here, and we're talking about how I mispronounce things, we can also comically mention how I said Neon Genesis Evangelion, even though apparently people told me it was Evangelion. But anyway, we're talking about Nier Automata. And again, this video was written by Rebecca Sinclair, who is now Dr. Rebecca Sinclair, and she's a professor at a university somewhere it's not in Portland, but I think it's in the Portland area. Anyway, this was really cool because, again, I played the whole game. She played the whole game. We were playing it together. I was giving her notes on drafts, but she nailed it. This game really is made for us. It's all about philosophy. Not only are all the characters named after philosophers, and usually, but not always, there's a specific reason for that, but the entire structure of the game speaks to these existential themes. And I think that Rebecca really came upon some insights that I did not immediately see. And I think that this video just came together really well. And again, the best videos are going to be the ones with the most philosophical content. And for those of you who have played Nier Automata, although I still will defend myself and say Automata sounds fine, for those of you who have played it, you guys know. This guy says, and my pronunciation of Automata isn't wrong. Thank you. I sometimes wonder how does the gaming community really agree on these pronunciations? But anyway. All right, so that was number 8. Next one is the Earthling Cinema on Zootopia. So I mentioned the co-creator and head writer of Earthling Cinema, Ben Steiner, earlier. This guy is so good. He's so brilliant. And it was such a joy working with him. And I really felt like this video in particular was really funny. There were some jokes in there, especially when he talks about over-sexualized rabbits in Hollywood, that just had me rolling on the floor laughing. There was also a joke about, it was like, and then the character decides to go ape shit, or shark shit, or bear shit, etc. And then, of course, I have to mention Mark Schroeder, who plays Garrick Swermuloid. Dude is so talented. During this time when Earthling Cinema was at its peak, we would always go to this comedy club on the weekends, and Mark Schroeder had this comedy team that had basically been winning all the comedy competitions for a year straight, so much so that they had to retire the team's ability to win this particular comedy competition. So it's just like a really good memory in my time around the time this one came out, and I think it was just so funny. So one of my favorite Earthling cinemas is the one on Zootopia. Nathan S says Judy Hopps was thick, though. I exactly. All right, moving on to number 6. This is the Earthling Cinema on Interstellar. I like the Deeper Dumb video, but we're actually going to the Earthling Cinema on Interstellar. Here it is. Again, I think that just this one worked out so well because Ben just hit, he just hit a home run with this script. I remember reading it the day before we were shooting because usually what would happen is Ben loved the guy, a bit of a procrastinator. So he would send me all 4 scripts at like 10 p.m. the day before we would shoot because we'd shoot 4 in a day. And then he would come over to the office and we'd stay up until way too late, just massaging the scripts. And he just came up with so many good jokes in this one. Probably the best joke in any Earthling Cinema episode is toward the end of the movie Interstellar when Matthew McConaughey's daughter is really old and Matthew McConaughey is still in his 40s. Garrick Swervioid says, that's the thing about daughters. You keep getting older, they stay the same age. Which was just like a standing ovation Matthew McConaughey joke that just so happened to work with it. And I just remember filming that episode, and he just had the whole crew, him and Mark Schroeder, just like this dream team of comedy, just had everyone laughing on the floor during the shoot. And it was really great to see that laughter also continued on into the actual release of the episode, because I remember it did quite well. So that is number 6, the Earthling Cinema on Interstellar. This next one is a 8-bit philosophy episode. Let's see. Nope. Here it is. The Final Fantasy episode on Jean-Paul Sartre. So the reason why there's twofold reasons for this one. One is that my world beliefs are very kind of like basic existentialism as a humanism. I kind of talked about it a little bit in the video where I talked about the people behind me. Sartre's, where the fuck is he? Yeah, there he is. Yeah, Sartre's right there. And my worldview is very much basic existential humanism. If you are a being that was thrown into this world with immutable things about yourself that you cannot change, aka your facticity, then you deserve dignity and rights and all of that. And that's really the only measure that we should have. And this video talks about this a bit, but also I was a huge Final Fantasy nerd as a kid. I mean, I'm one of those kids who grew up on FF7. And so FF7 had a huge impact on me. And of course, I went back and played all of the originals, and getting to play around with the Final Fantasy sprites to teach a central lesson from one of my favorite philosophers was such a treat. And also, again, David Crystal, the composer, everybody who's played a Final Fantasy game knows that one of the greatest things about it is the music. Not Tetsuya Nomura. Fuck me. That's a different dude. Oh man, having a brain fart. Someone in the comments help me again. It's well, whatever. The Final Fantasy music dude. I mean, he's not doing all of them anymore, but he was doing it back then. And David just nailed it. All of these are original composition. Nobuo Uematsu. Thank you, people in the comments. Too Strong and Bagorius and Mark. Thank you guys. Yeah, Nobuo Uematsu. And whether it was classic Zelda tunes or classic Final Fantasy tunes, we didn't steal any of them. We didn't literally recreate any of them. David created entirely, excuse me, David created entirely original compositions in the style of each one of these games. And I think that the one he did for Final Fantasy, I mean, necessarily had to be beautiful to do justice to Uematsu, and I think he did it. I think he created a piece that's really, really beautiful. And by the way, if you want to listen to these things, I think you can go to David Crystal's website. It's Krystal, and I think all of the 8-bit philosophy music is on there. But anyway, that's number 5. All right, number 4 is The Philosophy of South Park. This was um, I remember very fondly that this video came out the night that we hit a million subscribers. So not only that, but this video is specifically about season 19 of South Park, which is it's so good. The philosophy of, or excuse me, yeah, season 19 of South Park is in a lot of ways the peak of the show thus far. PC Principle was such an amazing addition. And Alec wrote this episode. He totally nailed it. And he did an amazing job of being able to connect the 3 themes of the season, which was advertising, PC, and gentrification, into this whole kind of critique of neoliberalism that I think is very much in the show. And another thing about this episode is that I think it really gave voice to a lot of people. I mean, people who are following this new channel of mine know that I'm very critical of political correctness, and that, like, although I'm very much a like economic leftist, I might not be a social leftist by some people's standards, even though I argue for dignity for everybody. But the criticism that uh, these calls for universal dignity can oftentimes get co-opted by capitalism and kind of be divorced from any actual humanitarian thought, is something that I think a lot of people were very keen on understanding. And philosophy and South Park just gave it a voice and really clarified it and made it so funny. So I was so happy to be able to really honor the best season of South Park with a video that not only, like the season did, spoke to the time back then, but also, I mean, it's still going on today. One of the sad things about, I think, the first episode of the season 19 of South Park is that one of the rednecks says, "Well, it looks like things are getting PC again. I wonder how long this can last." And he says, "Well, last time it lasted about 6 years." Well, it's 2021. That came out in 2015, 6 years, and it's not quite gone yet. So we'll see what happens. But Philosophy of South Park, a justified number 4. Just love, love, love that episode. Love that season. All right. So we're getting to my top 3 Wisecrack videos. And by the way, just to reiterate, this was not an easy list to do. This was tough. Oh, wait, that's the wrong thing. So my third favorite video of all time is Breaking Bad Week. Breaking Bad Week was 5 episodes of Earthling Cinema that we created, or that we released in a week. And this was a huge undertaking for us because not only do we cover just the plot of all 5 seasons, but we also cover pretty much every major theme in the show. This was a huge research effort by myself and another Hollywood writer named David Radcliffe, who is extremely talented, and him and I had worked together in the past. He's been staffed on a couple shows these days. I can't remember the name of the shows. I haven't talked to the guy in a while, but super talented. He's like a comedy writer these days. Another example of talents getting stolen from us. But this was just so much work. And we really felt like that at the end of the day. Not only did all the episodes come out really funny, but we really did justice to one of the funniest and not funniest, excuse me, one of the smartest shows ever, one of the best shows ever made, one of the greatest performances ever to go on the television. And this was like a huge effort for us. Every episode was part of a collaboration with another channel. This was really a big push for us to try to see how big can we make the Earthling Cinema brand, and how big can we make Wisecrack. Like, what if we just went all out on a project? What project would we want that to be? And we landed on Breaking Bad. And myself, David, Ben Steiner, Mark Schroeder. I think Mark Schroeder filmed like 6 episodes in a day. He was exhausted at the end. And Ryan Haley, who edited all of these, he was working like crazy. And I think I'm really proud with how they all came out. It was such an undertaking, and I'm so proud of all of that we did it. We made something that was funny, that does justice to such a complex and dense show, and you know, still resonates. So that's number 3. All right. Coming to my top 2 Wisecrack videos. So, number 2 is the philosophy of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. So, again, this was a video that was written by a gentleman named Thomas Ambrosini. Thomas Ambrosini is an awesome guy. I think he still writes for Wisecrack every once in a while. He actually has like a double PhD in theater studies and philosophy. So as soon as I found this guy, I was like, oh, okay, you're perfect. Um, and him and I watched the show together, not like physically together, but at the same time. And I've never really been a big anime fan, and it took me a long time to get sucked into Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, but man, it is a masterpiece. This show is amazing. And I'll always say, well, not always, I won't say I always say, but whenever someone brings up anime, I say, I haven't seen a lot, but Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is freaking amazing. And one of the reasons that this video really resonates with me is because I feel like with the philosophy of the Joker and the philosophy of Rick and Morty and just like the general like cultural trend of what people call Reddit atheism. I think that this video really gave these people who I guess were very focused on the fact that, yeah, if you think about, if you try to subject some of the things suggested in religion to scientific scrutiny, you're likely going to have a lot of doubt that these things have any kind of real empirical evidence or truth to them. And therefore, religion has no value whatsoever. And I think the philosophy of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood really kind of balances that opinion and gives voice to one of the reasons that faith can actually be something essential to humanity, essential to a functioning moral society. So again, like anytime, and I remember I once got an email, and I think I read this email live, or not live, but recorded in one of the videos. I can't remember which one now, but about a guy who said, like, I was religious and then I left my faith and became a kind of vehement atheist. And then I watched this video and I was reminded of how religion still can have value in society. And, that was what the project of Wisecrack was all about. Being able to give people new perspectives through the things that they love. And so Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, again, was just the perfect show for what we do. A show that works really well on its own, even if you're not thinking about it, because it's got compelling characters, or amazing visuals, a great story. But also, when you look beneath the surface, there's something quite profound to say. All right. So that was number 2. We are closing in now on my favorite Wisecrack video of all time. You guys ready for this? All right. It is the Thug Notes episode on Moby Dick. Now, why is this? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, I think it was around this point that my working relationship with Greg, as well as my co-writer Joe, as well as Jacob, who was still doing the illustrations at the time, I feel like at this point we really had found our groove. And like Greg was getting really comfortable with the character. And not only that, but Moby Dick is it's such a good book. I mean, the characters of Ahab and the man who calls himself Ishmael, or who is called Ishmael, um, are just such timeless characters. And really, at the end of the day, the reason why this is my favorite video of all time is because I think it was the perfect execution of the Thug Notes format. It's a book that, again, has a lot of very existential themes, but not in an, I guess, as kind of like a cynically sarcastic way as maybe Rick and Morty does or the Joker does. But really, the reason that this is my favorite episode is because the last line of the episode, that I wish I could take credit for, but it was actually my co-writer Joe who came up with it. So at the end of the episode, we're talking about how the man who's called Ishmael is floating aimlessly in the water after the Pequod is wrecked by Moby Dick, and how it was very much kind of described in the text as akin to like floating aimlessly in a meaningless world, and then, or an indifferent, meaningless world. And then in the book, he is saved by the ship known as the Rachel. And at the end, Sparky Sweet says, uh, and in the idea, like, that was the Rachel was the man who's called Ishmael's savior. And at the end, Sparky Sweet says, if something like, if you're out there floating in this difficult world, keep floating, homies, because somewhere out there, there's a Rachel for all of us that's waiting to save us. And I've rewatched this video before, and hearing Sparky Sweet say that has given me tears in my eyes. And I really feel like this video was my white whale. It was the one. It was the one that, this project, Thug Notes, was the thing I'm most proud of. And this is the video that I can look back on and say, we did it. Anyway, so that's it. That is the top 20 best Wisecrack videos that I've made. Thank everyone so much for joining me on this. This was really fun and also kind of emotional, just a trip back through memory lane. It was such an intense 8 years. I learned so much. I worked with so many incredible people. And that really is, I think, not only the knowledge that I gained, but the relationships that I made and the people that I was able to, get their career started. Like, again, Ben Steiner's work was so good. He's now like, he's writing on Saved by the Bell. He's writing on whatever that show about video game makers is. And I'm so happy that I was able to help him get that career started. David Crystal, again, has pretty much one of the best jobs in all of film composing. And I'm so happy that I was able to get him that. And, I think that everybody involved did some incredible work, and I'm so proud of it. And this really is my life's work. And yeah, thank you guys for joining me on this. And got more content coming. The one thing I'll say is that I've been promising that I'm going to have an interview with a guy who's canceled, but he backed out, and that's understandable considering how sensitive being canceled is. So unfortunately that video is not coming, but we'll have some new fun stuff coming. But thanks everyone for joining me again. And as always, peace, guys.